anyhow, we'll work around that number later. So Abraham believed God. So the promise was made when she was... Okay, got you. All right, so that had to be some sort of a weird typo. 25 years. Now, Abraham believed God's promise about inheriting Canaan as a type of the eternal city, despite the fact he had no son by Sarah. But the promise of God depended on such a son and heir. So Abraham actually believed what seemed to be an utter impossibility, yet the miracle happened. So when Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90, long after the time of childbearing, God rewarded faith by enabling this godly couple to have a son. Now, there's some statements that are made here, and we talked about this. It says Abraham never wavered in his faith in the promise of God. Yeah, they wavered a little bit. So, I mean, he had it. This illustrates some important things. Is that anytime we read about biblical characters, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? No, I mean, we give all the details regardless of what the situation is, and it's not some sort of made-up document that would only give the good to make everybody look good, that kind of stuff. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so to say that his faith never wavered, surely it did. Now, did he give up completely on his faith? No, but wavering's another question, and where we have our moments, and we all have our moments. Now faith here is the faith of Abraham receives innumerable blessings. So the initial miracle. Now, this is in verse 12, and this is a wordy sentence. Sometimes the New American Standard's just weird. So if you just, therefore also there was born of one man, and him as good as dead. That just reads weird, right? I'm just talking about the way the sentence is structured. No one writes like this. And at that, as many descendants as the stars of heaven in number, and innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. It's just a clunky construction. And sometimes that happens when we go from the Greek to the English, the New American Standard. And so anyhow, but what we do find is that the promise was fulfilled in Isaac, but that wasn't the end of the road, right? That was just the beginning. Isaac beget Jacob, and Jacob, he had a bunch of kids, right? 12 sons, 12 tribes of Israel, and then we know what went from there. When Joseph finds himself second in command in Egypt, where's the rest of his family? Back in Canaan. They came to Egypt. Why? Famine. Sounds familiar. How'd that work out? How'd it work out for Grandpa or great-grandpa? How'd it work when Abraham went to Egypt for a famine? Not great. Wasn't the best decision. How'd it work out for them? That's why they ended up in captivity. Right? When they went down to Egypt, that's now, next thing you know, we're getting lashes on the back and we're building pyramids. When they left and went down there. So, but I mean, it's all started here with this, and eventually they come out of captivity and establish themselves in the land of Canaan, many great victories, and then a lot of stuff happens from here, but this is where it all started. And remarkable that, and then what happens there, the point of all this is what? The point of the nation of Israel existing is what? The Messiah. So all of this is so that the promise was fulfilled in the people of Israel? Or, like, directly? Was it just physical descendants that were as numerous as the sand of the seashore? It's what? Spiritual descendants. Who's that? It's the church. That everybody that benefits from a relationship with Jesus Christ, and all those that were part of the promise leading up to the Messiah and everything that happened afterwards, it's all fulfilled in this moment. But it all began with this promise, and Messiah came to be because of what happened with Abraham and Sarah, and then Isaac and Jacob and all their descendants that brought the Messiah to be. And now here we are with descendants as innumerable as the grains of sand on the seashore or the stars in the sky. So the innumerable blessings, that's what we're speaking of here. The offspring, Isaac, it wasn't just about physical nation, which ended up being great, right? But it was about that spiritual that would come to be. So there's innumerable multitudes. So yet from Abraham came descendants as numerous as stars or sand. And so this is reproducing the metaphors of Genesis 22:17. So now our writer then interprets these metaphors by adding the word innumerable, and that is without number. And so again, that is yes, there was some descendants physically, but the reality, the greater than situation here is a fulfillment in that of the church. So transitioning from there into verse 13, it takes a little bit of a turn here. Now, we have a little bit of something to deal with. We got to figure something out. So let's see if we can figure it out. All these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. Okay, so real quick, let's deal with this. It says, all these died in faith. Well, we could have a problem here. So who's this referring to, all these, is important? Why is it important in the context of this 11th chapter? Faith, who the promise was to. Focus on the died. All these died. Who's the all these? Because it could be problematic. What's that? All of faith died? Did they? Okay. Well, did we talk about Elijah? Is he mentioned in this passage? Okay, we're almost there. Hang on to that thought, Danielle, but before we get that, we got to identify where the possible problem is. In this chapter, all the people that we've mentioned, did everybody die? Enoch did not die. So is this wrong? Okay, good. Okay, so the reason some say this is problematic is because Enoch did not die. It says all these died. But, and I think Danielle's on it exactly here, this is referring to the section that's dealing with the patriarchs. With Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah. These are the ones who died without. So it's the context is more narrow to what was just before it, not the entire chapter. Some people have an issue with this, and there's no issue. We just need to understand that all these died is referring to the immediate context here. The more distant context would include the others, and then that gets problematic. It's an easy explanation. It's referring to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Sarah. That's the ones it's referring to. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, these all refers especially to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Sarah because the eternal city, the main topic of this paragraph, was previously mentioned only in connection with Abraham. So we don't need to worry about old Enoch. That's not what it's talking about right here. If the statement applies to the entire list of names from Genesis, obviously Enoch is an exception to this general statement of fact. And it doesn't apply. It doesn't have to. Yeah, and that's the reference here. Yeah, that's good because it's the immediate context there. So in faith is literally in keeping with faith as it was defined in verse 1. So they were faithful unto death, even though they never experienced the fullness of all that was promised to them in this life. So they didn't get to see the immediate benefits of the promised land per se. It was going to have to be something further down the line, that greater city. So the NIV has an interesting paraphrase. It says, all these people were still living by faith when they died. That's good. I mean, I would hope that would be a sentence about all of us. And I really like that better than saying that you must be faithful unto death. Here's why I like it better. Because when we put it in that way, it seems like we're trying to achieve something. But if we say if we're living by faith when they died, that's kind of the concept. Is we're living by faith. It's the relationship that we're in with God, with Jesus, is by faith. And so I like that. I like the way that's phrased. So they had only to see let's try that again. They had only to see afar off with the eyes of faith the great things that were promised to them. So their focus in verse 13 is not on the present. And it's not necessarily on the present. Now they were certainly living in the present, but what was driving and motivating and keeping them moving one step after another was not necessarily the benefits of the present, but what's going to be in the future. So not on the present, not having received the promises. So the idea is they haven't received or obtained the fulfillment of the promises. The thought is either each of the patriarchs personally heard God's promise, or the one promise contained very specific items. The promises began with Abraham, were passed on to Isaac and Jacob. They all died before the promise about possessing the land of Canaan materialized. So either way. So they weren't necessarily focused on the present, but they were focused on the future. But having seen them and greeted them from afar. So the patriarchs never doubted God's promises. Had their moments, surely. Even though they themselves did not experience the fulfillment. With the eye of faith, they could foresee the day when their descendants would occupy the land and become a great nation. They were like pilgrims marching to Jerusalem for a festival who could see the city on a hill from a distance. It's kind of a cool thought. So they could enthusiastically point to the vision and shout their acclaim. From afar means from a long distance away. The meaning of the verb has also been likened to travelers approaching by ship, hailing friends on shore with a wave of recognition. So they had a confession as well, and having confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Now the patriarchs, they saw themselves as strangers or foreigners or pilgrims in this life, just passing through to the heavenly city. Now, the latter word refers to someone from another country that stays for a while in a strange place. So this statement is based on Abraham's confession in Genesis 23 and verse 4. At no time did Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob put down such roots as to cause them to feel that they really belonged to any certain spot on earth. And so because they didn't put down roots, they didn't build a home with a foundation per se, This was in effect their confession of faith. Is they were constantly waiting for the fulfillment of this promise when they would take possession of this land. And again, what was problematic in taking possession of the land? Yeah, it was already inhabited with some ornery people, right? Yeah, so it wasn't going to be an easy thing, and so they never set down roots, never built a place with a foundation, because they were constantly looking forward to that fulfillment. They didn't know when it would occur. It might happen in this life, it might not, but their focus was on something in the future. Now, verse 14 says, "For those who say such things make it clear they are seeking a country of their own." Verse 15, "And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they'd went out, they would have had opportunity to return." Verse 16, "But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them." Pretty cool. So this is making some strong statements about their eternal destiny, it seems. Seems like their eternal destiny has been confirmed in the fact that they, at the time they died, they were living by faith, and that now we have in this book recorded these facts, and the fact we see here that God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He's prepared a city for them. Seems pretty clear what? For them. Yeah, you're going to get to meet Him one day. Some of you ladies be like, "What was it like to be pregnant at 90? You can have that conversation. Huh? What was that like for you? You know, I mean, we're going to be able to have this conversation. I mean, we're going to get to rub elbows with these folks, because I think we have pretty solid evidence that they're going to be there. Sometimes we come across someone in Scripture and we're like, I'm not so sure, right? Like I can remember when we studied about Solomon. You guys remember Solomon? And I'm like, I don't know. This is, built the temple for God. Big spiritual day, the Shekinah glory, all this stuff, what he's responsible for. And there's some great things about Solomon, and then some poor decisions. And so, it's like, well, are we... Now, I tend to think we do have some evidence that we may get to meet him. You guys remember what that evidence is? That was David. Possibly. What evidence would that be? Specifically? Did Solomon write any books of the Bible? Oh, a few. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in Solomon about repentance. Lamentations? No, that's Jeremiah. Ecclesiastes? Seems like there might be some stuff about repentant heart in Ecclesiastes. A lot of people believe that Ecclesiastes was his confession in old age of saying, look, I tried everything in this life to find happiness and stuff outside of God, and you know what it got me? Bupkis, trouble, nothing. And then he determines, that the only thing that matters in this life is to fear God, right, and follow Him. And everything else is vanity. And so I'm hopeful that that is an expression of repentance that brought him back to God, and maybe we'll get to see him one day too. To think of the man who built the first temple for God that wouldn't be there, it'd be pretty sad. So sometimes we have evidence in Scripture, it's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to meet them. And other times, so does that mean you're writing me a check if I answer it? I don't think so. I mean, I don't recall. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I can't say one way or the other. Again, we would say God's the ultimate judge. We're not going to declare one thing or another. Now, I mean, here it seems pretty clear. Because, I mean, here it is in black and white, right? That God was not ashamed to call them to be their God, and He's prepared a heavenly place. That seems pretty clear. With Saul's situation, I'm not very confident. I'm not very confident based upon the biblical evidence. Oh yeah, he didn't go well for him. So here we've got some great evidence for these individuals that if we too remain in this relationship of walking and living by faith until we die or Jesus comes back, we're going to get to see them. That's a pretty cool thought. All right, their quest. For they that say such things make it manifest that they are seeking after a country of their own. Now, the idea here, such an acknowledgement as Abraham made indicates that he had found no permanent satisfaction here in this world. Believers are never totally comfortable in this world. We long for our homeland, heaven. And so the idea here then of the country is one's homeland or fatherland where one truly belongs and is truly happy. So believers are just passing through this world. They are not at home here. We live here for a time, but as children of God, our home is with the Father. The use of the present tense invites us to apply this thought to believers of any era. So this is true for them. It's true for us. And, we sing songs about that, right? This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through, right? It's true. So, what's that? Oh, yeah. There's some great songs about that. So their commitment, and if indeed they had been mindful of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. So there's a lot of things here in the language that can teach us some stuff. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but once he had committed himself, Abraham never looked back to his old country of Mesopotamia. Now, he had plenty of time and opportunity to return had he had any desire to do so. Now, the same is true of Isaac and Jacob. Even after Jacob had spent 20 years in Mesopotamia, he still did not regard that as his homeland. He returned to Canaan. Now, in their walk of faith, the patriarchs were looking forward, not backward. Now, again, these are generalizations as a whole. So Abraham's commitment to God upon leaving Ur was irrevocable. So once he set out, this was it. This was it for him. So their desire. So after leaving Mesopotamia, Abraham desired a better country or fatherland, one that was not of this world. So the patriarchs endured the pilgrim's life in Canaan because they had a higher goal, heaven itself. So they understood the spiritual significance of the promises God had given them, even though they never lived to see those promises fulfilled. So they knew there was some bigger things at play here, even though maybe not specifically how it was all going to play out. But they trusted God in His nature and character, even though not everything was clear in that moment. So verse 16 says, "But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them." That's a beautiful verse. And so their reward is a special standing with God. And so that's a great thing to be thinking about. Because of their steadfast faith, God entered into a special relationship with the patriarchs. Now, many scriptures refer to him as the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. That's pretty cool. You see that in Genesis 28, and you see other places that that's referred to over and over again. The promise is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's a beautiful thing. For God to have that written in the Word that way, it's beautiful. And then we have this special place prepared, and that is that city. Now, this is the same city mentioned in verse 10 and the better country mentioned in verse 14. So we have cities and countries and all this kind of stuff, all referring to that one eternal destination of heaven. So we see that too. We talk about different things that are referred to Mount Zion or heaven or the New Jerusalem. There's all these different terms kind of referring to the same thing from a different kind of a perspective. Now, this city is the true fatherland of God's people. Again, it's in the present tense. It keeps encouraging the readers to see themselves in the position of Abraham. So pretty cool stuff. Now, that's the end of your notes, right? This might be a record. We're done a little bit. What time you got? Okay, not too bad. 50 minutes, that's not too bad. All right, does anybody have any thoughts or questions about this here on Abraham? Abraham gets a lot of, it's pretty cool though. Abraham and these get a lot of stuff that's said here in a very good light, even though he had his moments where he did not act in faith, when he trusted in his own ideas, and those things usually did not work out well. But on a whole, for his life, it was kind of characterized by, I like this phrase, up and to the right. Up and to the right. You guys have ever seen like a graph, like a stock market? We want it going up and to the right, right? And so that's kind of the idea that we're talking about here is up and to the right, the general trend, but it includes what? Yeah, because nobody's perfect, right? It's not complete. And so we have those moments, we have those things, but the general trend for their lives as they walk by faith was up and to the right. We need to get some t-shirts. I kind of like that. I didn't come up, I didn't invent it, but I like it. Any thoughts, questions on anything? That's what it was. I have no idea how that number happened. I've slept since then. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and study that out. I don't have the faintest idea. We could play with the numbers and make them work somehow. All right, prayer request. I have, I left my phone. Did you get my phone off my desk? It's on my desk somewhere. Janet Reeves sent me a prayer request, and I want to make sure I get it right. Prayer request, anybody have any? So Caleb Marks was in a motorcycle wreck, 19 years old, and in coma. Okay, be praying for that situation. Cellulitis. But now they have a plan to treat it, and hopefully they've got a pathway forward. So That's Mary Shepard, has cellulitis, and she's also on a waiting list for double lung transplant, so a lot of things going on there. Okay, Janet sent that her cousin David Cotter had a heart attack, and to be praying for him. Heart usage at 20%. That's what she told me. So he's 51 years old with two high school, college-age children. So, sure. The family of Peggy Webster. Okay. All right, any others? Okay, announcement, couple. So, May 30th, Eric, May 30th, for like a 11:30-ish. So yeah, it'll be somewhere close to that, 11:30, 11:40, something like that, 12:15, depending on how they post the times for the movies. But you're going to the Escape Theaters in Jeffersonville, which are really nice. It's a family-friendly kind of a thing. Shouldn't have anything should be good to go see. Star Wars, little cute green thing. Looks Baby Yoda, you people call him incorrectly. It's Grogu. So, Grogu. Yeah. The name of the movie is The Mandalorian and Grogu. All right, and also, Sunday, we're having the baked spaghetti dinner. That's the fundraiser, and there's also that little thing that's happening of the auction fundraiser of the beautiful baskets that the Sunday school classes put together. Going to be giving away a prize for the basket that brings in the most, and also the one with the most creative theme. So those awards will be given out as well. So it's going to be a great day. So make plans to be here for lunch. My famous baked spaghetti recipe. So pretty good stuff. We're going to try to do that. Okay, so great opportunity to support our next level and rooted students that are going to Delmarva this summer. We're partnering with Glen Estey and Lake Mount Church of Christ. And it's going to be good that we're going to get to spend time with there at Delmarva and a couple days in D.C. So we're sponsoring the team as an evangelistic effort that we can build relationships. And at the end of the season, we're going to host the team and their families here for Hanover. Yeah, the Hanover Parks Department, their baseball league. So team number 1 on field number 2. What's that? Yeah, and Jedi and JJ are on the team. So, among others. So, great opportunity. All right. Yeah, don't forget, too, that the following Sunday after that, Pentecost Sunday, Dr. Terry Pierce is going to be here speaking that day. It's going to be a great day. We're going to be providing fried chicken for the meal. You guys bring your side dishes and desserts. We'll be celebrating that great day. And, yeah, looking forward to that, too. Great celebration. All right. I think that's it. Let's be standing. We'll close in prayer. And we all know what's about to happen. Eric, pray.